tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Noa tonga ahau. Ko pusiaki te whānau. Ko Losalia Aleva ahau. Ka nui te mihi ki a koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Distinguished guests, kayako, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, māloe lelei. My name is Mrs. Losalia Aleva, but also known as Milika Pusiaki. I hope you and your whānau are doing well during this unprecedented time. Please allow me to share with you my mahi, which is my Maumaharatanga Aromatawai 1, the assessment brief of the conference presentation of my Rangahau project, which is titled Fe'unukoula. The word Fe'unu refers to the strips of pandanus leaves already prepared by the Tongan women to start the weaving of our Tongan mats. During the process of weaving, the weaver needs more of the strips of pandanus to be inserted to where the lalanga or the weaving is in order to continue weaving until it reached the desired length. As you can see on this picture, this is the mat, and the strips are called Fe'unu. Now, when it comes to my field of practice, I am using the mat weaving and the strips of pandanus as a metaphor. The mat that was woven from the past by my ancestors are the fiber Faka-Tonga, or the Tongan dancing. And that mat is still not finished. And as they left this plane, they expect us to be the strips to continue on the weaving of this indigenous knowledge through teaching and passing that knowledge to our younger generations. And in the future, they will teach it to their children and so forth. So Fe'unukoula is translated as the golden thread. It is an important treasure to my people, and to us, it is worth more than gold. That is why my Rangahau project and my exegesis is called Fe'unukoula. It is the golden thread of skills and knowledge from the past that is now introduced to the present, to our children to build their future as proud Tongans around the globe. The picture here at the bottom, as you can see, shows how skills were passed from indigenous master poets like Her Majesty down here, the late Queen Salote, and then to my great-grandfather, Vili Pusiaki, to my great-uncle here, Malukava, to my grandfather, and now to me. If you visualize the mat that I talked about in a metaphoric sense, you can visualize the invisible mat that has been fatu or initiated from the past, and it will be a never-ending weaving because we want to keep on adding the strips or the fe'unu to preserve our culture. Unfortunately, because with our oral traditions, some of our indigenous knowledge has either been extinct or altered. The platform, He Wakahiringa here, is a blessing and an amazing opportunity to solidify the goals and objectives of the intergenerational passing of skills and knowledge, especially here in Aotearoa. There are about 15 different dances, Tongan dancing, but in this project, I'm focusing solely on the Tongan female dances called Tau'olunga Faka-Tonga, because not only it is the most popular dance that is used by individuals, families, churches, and the community, but also non-Tongans who love dancing have reached out to us to learn a few moves of the Taulunga Faka-Tonga. And this dance is very important, in my opinion, because it stands as a pillar that would constantly remind our people in different age levels the uniqueness of our Tongan culture. For example, when I teach, yes, you can see here, when I teach the young girls the skills of Taulunga, I also explain to them that the Taulunga Faka-Tonga showcase their values as a beautiful Tongan young maiden and the importance of keeping their purity until their wedding day. And often they would just giggle about it. But when I inform them why they wear the pule oto or the cowrie shells around their neck, as you can see here, these two girls are wearing pule oto, and so is this Miss Tonga International. I explained to them the reasons and also the reasons why they put coconut oil on their body. It's to showcase, and it's a proud moment for their mother and her family, that they have safeguarded her values so that she becomes pure. She's still a virgin and she doesn't become the gossip of the village. I noticed that their faces looked serious. And then, you know, later or down the line, their lives changed after that, because I then realized that they are more committed to our classes, more curious, and most importantly, they look proud when they walked on stage with body that's already covered with oil and the cowrie shell around their neck. So that is the main objective of this project, and the work that Fe'unukoula does is to stand as a pillar or a platform to constantly remind our young people who they are, where they come from, and what represents them in this ever-changing world. And one of Fe'unukoula's motto is to emphasize that what's more important is not what we will leave with them, but rather what we will leave in them. I would like to invite you all to journey with me as we unpack what is Taulunga Faka-Tonga, how it came about, and the methodology that is used, as well as the model of practice behind this very, very popular Tongan female dance. Now, what is Taulunga Faka-Tonga? Taulunga Faka-Tonga is the Tongan female dances where it can be performed as a solo item or a group dance. The word Taulunga has several meanings, but I will only share the two meanings that coincide with my project. In our Tongan society, our hierarchical society, we use different dialects and terminologies to people, depending on their status in the Tongan society. For example, the word face is translated as mata when we refer to a commoner's face. If we are referring to a noble, his face will not be called mata, it will be called fofonga. And for the king of Tonga, it will be called langi or Taulunga. On my right side here, as you can see this picture here, this is King George Tupo I. So if we talk about him or spoke about his face, Tulo, this face will be called langi or Taulunga. So that's one meaning of the word. The second meaning comes from the Tongan house or the fale. As you can see on this picture here, the Taulunga is the post that lies horizontally, and it's where all the beams will be connected, and it was used as structural support to help hold the roof from the top. So you can see here, this beam or this here post is called the Taulunga. See that there? That's the Taulunga. And like what I've just mentioned, it is used to support or to help hold the roof from the top. It is believed that this methodology of the Tongan house was used as a model of practice when the Tau'olunga was created for our Tongan young maiden. Now, when I was working at the Tongan Cultural Center in Tonga before I migrated here to New Zealand, I learned that before the missionaries reached our shores, there were different types of entertainment that our women performed to entertain and amuse the King of Tonga. Some of these items were called me'elaufola, pohea, poula, fakaliku, etc. These dances were very exotic and erotic, and more often than not, the king would have so many women as his concubine, and his chiefs will benefit from it too. This is an old photo, as you can see here. If you can see this, where my cursor is at the moment, this is an old photo of the Tongan women entertaining the king. As you can see here, the king is here with his men. And you can see their costume in the olden days is quite alluring. However, when King Tupoda I, again this photo here, accepted Christianity to Tonga, the missionaries banned all these dances and those that I mentioned before, because it was against the Christian beliefs that they have introduced to Tonga. Now, according to Dr. Adrienne Kepler, she's an American anthropologist that wrote a lot of articles and books about Tongan dancing. But in her channel article here, she stated that in a Tonga cassette on the 7th of March, 1888, there was a warning that if anyone found engaged in any heathen dance will have a fine of $5. And from there, it is believed that it was from the changes, that my people decided to create dances that align with the values of Christianity. And so they used the model of the Tongan Fale, or the Tongan house, to create this dance that is now called Tau'olunga Faka-Tonga. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Tau'olunga is the term that we used for the king's face. They brought that and applied it to teaching the Tau'olunga, where the dancer uses her facial expressions a lot to assist the conveying of the message in the composition. They also use the methodology of the Tongan Fale for the structure of how the dancer moves by restricting and forbidding the use of the lower part of the body from the hip downwards, so that it is more acceptable to the modern Tonga. And the use of the word Tau'olunga was combined, both its meaning, and as I talked about it earlier, and it is also to reiterate the important role of the beam to the Fale-Tonga, this one here, which is to hold together all the beams that binds to the roof, and also to adjust any unbalanced sides to the beams. That same principle made the Tau'olunga unique in terms of its philosophical underpinning values. Now, to teach the dancer to know that Tau'olunga Faka-Tonga is not just an entertainment, it is a role to play, a task to be fulfilled, and she is an embodiment of the composer, the choreographer, the costume designer, the musicians, her ancestors, her village, as well as her country when she performs Tau'olunga Faka-Tonga. And I also want to acknowledge the approach that Fe'unukoula has, is to also encourage our Tongan dance practitioners to preserve the underpinning values and utilize it when they teach this dance, so that the reefs of today, which are our children, become strong islands of tomorrow, and that they can withstand the forces of changes. As you know, some scholars have changed the indigenous values of our culture, including our dances, and have derailed it into a more westernized approach. And in doing that, it loses its originality, authenticity, and uniqueness. And as Dr. Clive Espin, the Executive Research Officer of Ngā Pai o te Maumaharatanga, stated, From the early days of colonization and into the present, distorted views of Maori have been generated and disseminated by researchers who have come from outside the Maori community and brought Western perspectives to the research process. And this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly the case when non-Tongans, whom are scholars, wrote books and articles that are already published about Tongan dances, but it's from their own westernized assumptions and perceptions. And that is now becoming resources for our tertiary students. But it's sometimes it's not accurate. And our recommendations and our approach is to allow native Tongans like myself and other choreographers or other poets to write, to preach, to teach, and pass on this indigenous knowledge using what we've been taught or what have been passed down from our ancestors to us. Now, lastly, I just want to share with you, as it says there, sharing is caring, some important findings about Tongan Taolunga, and that I highly recommend to anyone who would like to learn more about this amazing dance, including my plea to the emerging Tongan dance practitioners to please add these values to their work. Taolunga is the modern version of the ancient dances that were banned by the missionaries. The Fe'unukoula was transformed into the female group dance, now known to us as Taolunga Tokolahi, or the female group dance. And Taula is now the solo dance, or Taolunga Tokotaha. Secondly, Taolunga methodology stems from the structure and meaning of the Tongan Fale, Tongan house. And it's the aim and the objective of teaching core values to our Tongan young girls. Thirdly, there are 4 different types of Taolunga Faka-Tonga, and the Tongan dance practitioner should gain that knowledge when teaching this dance. First, the first type is called Taolunga Whakahoifua, which is done only by the Tongan princesses and the royal maidens. The second type is called Taolunga Whakameite, and it is to be performed by only a person of noble blood or a close relative of the royal family, but lower in rank to the royal family. And the third one is Taolunga Faka-Tonga, which is for everyone, including the commoners. And its appropriate ways of performing Tongan female dance Taolunga is to make sure that they wear the cowrie shell, tell them what it means, and also put oil on their body so that they know their values. And also towards the end, as you can see down here, there should be a hype man or tula fale to support the girl dancing. And the last is the more modern type of Taolunga. It's called floor show style Taolunga, which is more modern, upbeat, and its sole purpose is to entertain and amuse the tourists that visit Tonga. I hope that this information I've shared today is worth your time, and thank you so much for listening to our offer.